Salute Black Goose TV family. What's good with it? We back like we never left. Nothing but love, salutations, positivity, and blessings going your way. I got some boxing news for my family. Let's go ahead and get right into it. If you haven't heard, let me be the first one to tell y'all Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya have now officially entered their names in the Terence Crawford sweepstakes. Now, personally, I've been waiting to hear a promoter along the lines of a Eddie Hearn, along the lines of even a Frank Warren, Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya. I've been waiting to hear something, in regards to whether or not they are interested or at the very least wanting to sign Terence Crawford since his well-known split from Bob Arum last year after the Sean Porter fight. Now, the thing that's interesting when it comes to the split, as we all know, the lawsuit that happened. So in my mind, or at least what I'm thinking to myself is, okay, the reason why we haven't really heard anything from some of these big name promoters is simply because of the fact that there's that lawsuit going on, and maybe they are like, hey, let's sit back, let this play out. Once we kind of see this coming to a resolution, then we'll start throwing our names out there because we don't want to mess up anything in regards to that. Or maybe there's some legalities to it where they can't necessarily say something until after a certain point. But finally, we have some, big name promoters actually saying, hey, I would love to have Terence Crawford. Actually, the first big name promoter I heard specifically talk about Terence Crawford being a free agent was Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn spoke on it. He said he would love to have Terence Crawford. He thinks he's a talent. But Eddie Hearn was very honest in his analyzation of the situation, saying, hey, as much as I would love to bring Terence Crawford on, I don't think Terence Crawford will want to, come on with us, to be honest with you, because we don't really have any power and getting him the fights that he wants. Not only that, but it wouldn't really make much sense for us to bring him on because we know we can't get him the fights that he wants. Obviously, Terence Crawford is in a very interesting situation where even though he's considered one of the best in his weight class, he's not as known as people would like him to be. Or let me say this, he's not as known as the business side of boxing would like him to be, where he's coming into a free agent. And if he has certain demands, what a lot of these promoters will say and look at when it comes to Crawford is, hey, similar to kind of what Bob Arum was saying toward the end of the end of their run, like, hey, I know how good you are. I know you can probably beat anyone we put in front of you, but the problem is the marketability factor. We're not saying you're not marketable. We're just saying at this point of your career, we really don't have much time to build up or build on what has already been created by your previous promoter. And that's the unfortunate part. A lot of people criticize Terence Crawford for being with Bob Arum so long. Because, obviously there was a certain shtick when it came to Bob Arum, or a certain idea, thought, opinion, whatever you want to call it, when it came to the African-American side of the game. We would, tend to look at Bob Arum as, racist, et cetera. So we would always wonder why someone like Terence Crawford would be under him, right? But now if you're going to take all that out, that's not me saying that, that's what I believe, but that's just the general idea of the boxing community in reference to Bob Arum when we're talking about outside or we're talking about specifically about the Black community, which is going to be the majority of Terence Crawford fans, So with that being said, there was a divide in Terence Crawford's fan because majority of his fan base was, African-American Black, but there was a divide where certain African-Americans or Blacks didn't like him, not because of his skill set, or didn't watch him, not because of his skill set, but simply because he was under Bob Arum, which is just one of the most ignorant things in the world. It is what it is. With that being said, it did affect his marketability. Now, a lot of people, during this time frame of him being with Bob said, hey, you need to leave. You need to leave. And when I say a lot of people, I mean a whole bunch of, fucking keyboard warriors, boxing YouTube channels, blah, blah, blah. Why are you with Bob Arum? Why are you with a racist? Da, 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 da. When if you would have looked at the specifics, Bob Arum was the first nigga to give him a big bag. When Terence Crawford first signed with Bob Arum, his first payday was somewhere in like the $900K value, and then every fight after that was $1 million plus. And people don't understand that. People don't understand when there was a point outside of Floyd Mayweather, Terence Crawford was getting one of the biggest bags other than Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner, at one point, Terence Crawford, Adrian Broner was getting the big bags, where Earl Spence was making his way up, Danny Garcia was still there, Keith Thurman was still there, and Danny Garcia was getting big bags, by the way. And I'm just talking about this particular weight class that we're kind of specifying. Like all these different guys, especially, Ugas, all these guys, Sean Porter, none of them were making more money than Terence Crawford. The only guy that could say, hey, I'm making just as much money as you, Terence Crawford, during that time frame is AB. You guys don't have to believe me. It's fucking in the book. So go look it up. I hate when people come to me like, no, that's a lie. You're just making stuff. Just go look it up. Like, it's that easy. Fuck what you feel, nigga. Look at the facts. Anyways, with that being said, unfortunately, because, some of our people are so ignorant that we're so focused on shit that has nothing to do with actually making sure that the boxer that we should be supporting is in a powerful stage, you could say, after being with his promoter. Because if he had us as his fan base, he wouldn't be dealing with this, right? Look at Errol Spence. Errol Spence is more bland than Terence Crawford, says less than Terence Crawford, but yet he has a very big fan base. And part of that is just because y'all ignorant motherfuckers just be like, oh, he's with Al Heyman and PBC, so he loves us. But I'm not going to get into this. I hate making, this when it comes to us, Black Goose family, we try to stay away from those type of topics. I'm just bringing you the real, and I'm just telling you a lot of people go off their emotions rather than fact, and understanding that boxing is business. It's not for your fucking pleasure to be your best friend and make you feel like we run the world. Anyways, so with that being said, let me bring this in full circle. I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of promoters, or I won't say a lot, but specific promoters can't do anything with Terence Crawford because where he is in his, in his career based off of what was built fan base wise off of him being with Bob. So there is a catch up that Terrence will need to do. Terrence doesn't feel that way, but promoters like a Eddie Hearn, who's, a lot of his fan base or a lot of the fighters that he can get is going to be based out the UK. He can't do anything with Terence Crawford because he's like, I don't have enough leverage to get you fights with people, with the top PBC welterweights. He just doesn't. Neither does Frank Warren, right? We can even go as far as saying neither does Oscar De La Hoya, right? Even though Oscar De La Hoya is saying, I would love you, Crawford, because Oscar De La Hoya knows he's going to pay Crawford good money, probably great money, say, hey, I can get you the best fights, but even if I can't, I promise you, you're going to be a superstar on our program because he doesn't have much. Let's be real. He's still, after the loss of Canelo, that was his biggest thing. Now he just has Ryan Garcia, Virgil Ortiz, right? There's a couple other up-and-comers. Obviously, there's still Jose Ramirez, etc. But for the most part, Jaime Mwangi, etc., etc. But even with that being the case, Terence Crawford coming up would end up being probably one of the biggest well-known, skilled boxers, accomplished boxers on Oscar De La Hoya stable when it comes to boxers. So he's willing to take that chance, and I'm pretty sure he would be willing to take some risks when it came to making some fights happen with PBC if need be. Floyd Mayweather, hey, I would love you, Spence. And like these two people saying that they would love to bring him on makes sense. Why? Floyd's about to lose his biggest draw, supposedly, and Gervonta is thinking about, testing his free agency, testing the market. Oscar De La Hoya, like I said, he lost his biggest draw in Canelo. Currently, the biggest thing he has is Ryan Garcia. So both of these guys need something. The last thing either two of these guys want Terence Crawford to do is go sign with Al Heyman, right? And people say, what? Floyd and Al Heyman is cool. You got to understand, two different entities, right? TMT, Floyd Mayweather Promotions, yeah, they have an agreement with PBC, but that's not under the PBC promotional company if you're with TMT. You with TMT if you're under TMT. There's a difference, right? Golden Boy Promotions don't got nothing to do with ESPN in the sense of if I sign to Golden Boy Promotions, I'm not signing to ESPN. Golden Boy Promotions has a broadcasting deal with ESPN. You see, it's kind of like the same thing with PBC, right? They have a broadcasting deal with PBC, TMT, pay-per-views, etc. Okay? So, of course, this makes sense. So, I've already made this long-winded. Whoever's made it through this far, respect to you. I'm not going to go too deep into this article because, honestly, I didn't even think I was going to talk like this about this because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But let's just see what they have to say, okay? Crawford is now the hottest property in the sport as a fight with Spence Jr. for all the welterweight marble looms. Obviously, that also made him a hotter prospect because we understand that the biggest fight to make is Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. So no matter where Terence Crawford goes, that promoter is going to have pressure on them to make that goddamn fight happen no matter what the stipulations are, right? So you guys got to remember that. So the Golden Boy boss said, imagine if Al Heyman lets Errol Spence Jr. fight Virgil Ortiz and I stage it at Dallas Cowboy Stadium or in Vegas at the Legion Stadium. Obviously, he's being over the top. Spence replied, imagine if I said, no, I only have interest in one fight. He's not with you. Switching tactics, De La Hoya then stated, Terence Crawford, I would help. De La Hoya is such a thirsty motherfucker. Terence Crawford, I would help you negotiate to protect your interest in the fight against Errol Spence Jr. for free. So that's powerful. Oscar De La Hoya is willing to say, hey, yo, Terence, you don't got to sign with me. That's not the new thing. Let's do a co-promotional deal. We'll have this under Terence Crawford Promotions. You'll be the main attraction. Everyone's going to be looking at you. Let me just kind of step in. Let's get like 30, 40% and just help out. This boy, Oscar De La Hoya, is a third. Somebody get this man some water. Why he so thirsty? Look, that's how much I want to see the fight. That ain't how much you want to see the fight. You hoping that goddamn you can get Terence Crawford under your promotional company. He wins, and you was lead. Oh, I did this shit for free. Look, I only took 20 to 30%, and then you hope he just rolls with you to the end of his career because you know what that's gonna do for you. That boy Oscar, hey shit, I see the business side of the move, you Oscar, and it's a good move. This comes from Floyd Mayweather. He went for the Crawford approach. I would love to sign Terence Crawford. I've talked about getting Terence Crawford the fight that he wants for the undisputed title against Errol Spence. So that was really all he said. Not as much. So Floyd obviously sounded nowhere near as thirsty as Oscar. Oscar is just a thirsty motherfucker, period, when he talks, but that's why we love him. He's so goddamn entertaining. But let me know what you guys think about this. Obviously, Terence Crawford has options, but between Floyd and Oscar De La Hoya, who would you rather see him sign with, and who do you think would be more beneficial at this point in his career? Let me know below. Comment, like, subscribe. I love y'all. Glad to be back, and I ain't got nothing but more content for y'all, so look out.